Welcome to Vectorworks Tutorial 9, Slab Styles. We're going to look at slab styles now on a smaller scale. It's a small house. It's a passive house. Work we did with a colleague in Ireland, a passive house certified designer. That's Mark Stevens, who coincidentally used to be Vectorworks.co.uk. It was a great opportunity to work with him on passive house design, and we're going to focus on the slab. So this slab is a passive house slab. It's seriously insulated. Let's put on a bit of that. Yes, that looks rather good. So there we are. I mean, I've modelled the foundations, haven't I? Actually, I mean, it's just an extrusion. Here you go. Solid addition in structural footings. We'll see how that works. What have we got here? Extrude and extrude long path. Yeah, so it's a combination of extrude and extrude long paths, and there it is. Okay, so you can get that, but I suppose importantly we want to see this relationship here of the way the slab fits onto that footing, external wall. I haven't got them on. Oops, hang on. Yeah, there we go. That should do it. Yeah, right. So, oops, there we are. So you can see that the external wall likewise is heavily insulated as well. There's a hell of a lot of insulation. I think it's 200 thick, 100 block, and there's some very clever detailing around the thermal bridging using an ultra. I mean, I'm sure you know this from part E. Part L. Using the slabs is a bit intensive, more intensive than just using floors. I mean, to be honest, I tend to just use floors. They're much more manipulable, really, and less of sophisticated component. I mean, of course, the slab is essentially made up of floors, but you can try and click on the thing. There they are. Right, so it's a slab. Okay, and this is the style in my, rudimentary plain English nomenclature. So it's a ground floor slab, the ground bearing 150 plus 150 in insulation and 75 screed, plus a tiled finish, and that's obviously switched off. I wonder why that's switched off. We can turn it on if you like. Anyway, if we just look at edit style, it's going to tell me my tile finishes and slab component finish tile. Right, silly me. There we are. And bedding, I do allow. So my finishes are 25 overall. There's a 15mm tile and there's a bedding, no nominal bedding. Okay, so which can be whatever. Thin bed adhesive or whatever. So that's my slab style. This is the one. Ground bearing slab, 150 with 150 insulation and 75 screed plus finishes. Okay, so where is that? Let's cancel that. Oh yeah, so you wanted to see that. There we are, it's switched off. So slab component finish tile. Now these are Vectorworks default classes, that's why I'm using it. And there it is. Alright. Now we're going to look at the slab, the way the slab behaves as it's basically a macro, isn't it? Like the walls, plugins and all the rest of it. So it's clever. It does things like the wall does, and you can make openings in it and all the rest of it, which you can see I've done here. So we'll turn off structural footings, I think. Let's get rid of those. Yeah, there we go, bye. And what's that one? Yeah, so structural slab. Oh yes, of course, that is the whole of it. Okay, so you can see the load-bearing concrete has been towed to make way for the external wall leaf, and there's the detailing again is very rigorous in the way that the thermal envelope is all joined up, so there's no coal bridges. And so maybe we'll just start with this. I mean, here's a piece of, it's a doormat. It's recessed into the screed. Now, okay, so how can we look at that? Basically, now, if you double-click the slab, okay, there we go. Edit the slab. Boundary, modifiers, reshape, manual edges. It's quite a big deal. Now, the boundary, all right, we'll have a look at that. There is the boundary. Okay, it tells me it's a polyline. Fine. Let's try something else. Oops. Well, you can see that some of the boundaries. So basically each of the components has a controllable boundary. That's the point. Now that is a finishes floor. That's a doormat. Okay. If I turn that off, right? What did I do? So now I've got. Oh, sorry. There's a trim. There's a metal trim around that. There's a metal trim around that recess. I'll turn the old clip cube off. There we are. You see. So there's a metal trim around that, and there's a recess in the screed for your doormat. Right? Recess doormat. Well. Oh, here we go. Look, edge offsets. That's the trick. So edge offset. So I can select the component, right? And I can control the edge offset. So now the slab itself has 0, and everything else is -100 to make way for the inner leaf. Okay, now it's got a lot of edges, and you'll have to go through. You can go through and manually change each of these edges, which is great. I mean, it's a little bit. It's a clever plugin, and you know, for me that's a bit laborious, but you know it does work. It's horses for courses. I'm not going to get. I mean, this was a production information job, so it was worth doing. But for heaven's sake, I'm not going to do this on a concept model. There you see there the edge reference. So the edge reference, it basically means if it's you know, inside face of wall or whatever, it'll give you a reference to another another component in the model. I can't seem to make that work, but I hope you get the idea. Yeah, so screed, for example. I'll try again, see if I can bring the edge reference up. No, it's because they're manual, right? I'm doing it manually. Truth be told, this was the first of the more successful slab styles that I've used. I've previously just found them too clumsy. But anyway, so if I want to make that mat well, I mean, here's the clever bit. We're in structural slab. Okay, so it doesn't particularly matter which class you're in. I mean, you just go like that, right? And then you know, not subtract solids. It's clip surface, isn't it? Yes. So let's. Oops. Oh dear. No, that was wrong. What happened there was that the whole I reshaped the whole slab. So here, if you just go, of course, right click, you can do it however you like. Clip surface, and it's going to ask you, where do you want to subtract this from? And so for my mat well, I only wanted to subtract it from the tile and the bedding and the screed. So there you go. Now I've got another one. And all jolly D, basically. There it is. That's a hole through the. That's a hole through the. That's a hole through the screed. Again, so if I edit the slab, I can now edit the boundary, edit the modifiers. All right, so the modifiers here. Yeah, sure enough. Now that's quite cool because the way I used to do it was to, as if you were editing a group, command and square bracket does the same thing. So the shortcut for that is command and square bracket, like it is for editing any group, quite honestly. Effectively, it's a group. So what if I want to delete that? Go to the modifier and just delete it. Ping. Oops. Yeah, it's gone. Right. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. Where they are, where do they live? They live in, tidy. They live in the Slab Styles folder. ANH was simply the job name. So I got a few of those. I've got a ceiling, actually. I've got the warm ceiling, which I use for the ceiling, right? I've got the flat roof, warm flat roof. That's quite a sophisticated one, which you can have a quick look at if you like. There we go. So the plaster is the date and level. That's what that little arrow thing means. I've got a void for ceiling battens, then I've got an air gap, which is the mechanical house ventilation, and I've got a zone for joists. Now I've turned those off because otherwise it just comes out as a solid, so I've drawn the joists using a framer in that, but that's another story. There's my insulation, sarking, nominally some plywood board, then some insulation on the outside, and then the standing seam roof. So I hope you get the idea. I mean, you can, there's all the attributes. Of course, all attributes must be by class, as I'm sure you're tired of me reminding you. And the other more sophisticated things. Okay, there's a datum offset, so I can't remember why. Yes, it's a roof. Yes, it's an exterior roof. And actually the calculated R value, there we are, 0.17 square meter watts per Kelvin watts, which is well inside the target passive house level. Textures, use component textures, right, so that's worth pointing out, that the component textures are why you're seeing my insulation different from my screed, if you want to look at that. Insulated ground floor slab with thin bed tile finish, great. Oops, that's wrong. No. Okay, so I was a bit lazy there. I didn't bother to. If we look at, I didn't bother to change the description in my. This is the one, the ground floor slab, insulated ground floor slab with thin bed tile finish. So, whoops, smack on wrist. I forgot to change the description in my roof slab. Here we are. Function floor. Yes, it's load bearing basically because it's carrying the partitions. And oh crikey, yes. Okay, Uniclass cost index. Combustible construction, no it isn't. Compartmentation, no it isn't. But anyway, so there we go. Use component textures, insertion options, goes into structural slab class, and the definition, there you go. So, for example, the insulation, well, I have it in slab component insulation. Just to finish it off, let's go to that class. Boing, 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 there we are, insulation, and actually this is something that Mark uses. He uses the pattern of the circles, which is quite good. It does show up nicely in the in the viewports, in the production information viewports. But the texture is the main thing. It's textile. It's textile. Found it in one of the default libraries. It looks like kind of polyisocyanuric foam. There it is. Well, it's as near as damn it. So that's it. So my actual concrete. I'll go back to there. Excuse me. Is in slab component slab, right? And then my screed is in slab component screed, and so they've got slightly different textures. Slab component slab. Guess what? It's actually concrete. Okay, as he's got surface hatch, which is a bit of a nuisance. It sometimes get the scale right in your different scale viewports, whether it's 1 to 2, 1 to 5, 1 to 20, blah 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 blah. Screed. Again, oh, I use a hatch for that I made up myself. It's a kind of dashed line thing. Anyway, concrete wet seemed to give a nice differentiated finish for my screed. Okay, and then of course the tiles. The tile pattern was this is a hatch. This is a hatch that came up many years ago for a shopping mall. Actually, you might know which one. The hatch was extremely complicated to draw, and I was literally up all night making that hatch work, but that's another story. If I can find it for you very quickly, you can have a very quick look at it. Oh yeah, here we are. Right, this this took hours and hours to get right, but it was what the design intent, that's what they wanted, that's what I gave them. Okay, we'll save that, and I hope that's been helpful.